Well, thank you so much for being here for our last Power Friday for 2023-2024. This is an idea that Wanju had over a year ago and said we really want to do this Power Friday focusing on VR, XR, AI. And we looked at the schedule and this proved to be the best time to do it. So thank you for your patience and waiting all this time to be able to do it. And I think that was helpful to really get some great collaborations going. So you got some really exciting presentations. I want to acknowledge our guest speakers that are here with us from outside the college and outside Purdue. We have Dr. Melva Grant. She's a professor of mathematics and education at Old Dominion University, which is, what state?
It's in Virginia.
That's what I thought.
Right near Virginia Beach in North Virginia.
All right. Well, thanks for making the trip out here. Dr. Grant is a mathematics teacher educator and a researcher specializing in creating risk-free environments for pre-service teachers to practice effective teaching strategies, mixed reality simulations, technologies. Dr. Grant's research is theoretically based on relational competency for mathematics equity, which relies on authentic social interactions. I also want to acknowledge we have Dr. Tawfiq Salem here from right here at Purdue over in computer information technology, where my son graduated from. So I know it's a great program. And he'll be talking later on in the second half of the program about integrating AI to virtual reality-based simulations to build intercultural competence. So I saw some earlier prototypes of this stuff like 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm very anxious to see what that's going to look like. We also have a special guest. We have George Takahashi. Is that right? He's the director of the Envision Center. How many of you know what the Envision Center is of the mind? Okay. It's like in the tunnel between Stewart and the Purdue Memorial Union. You walk by, it's got all those huge screens there and stuff like that. It looks really, really cool. And he's been working closely with our faculty and others on some of the projects as well, and is going to provide us some technical support here as we do some demonstrations. And then related to that, we'll have our own faculty as well. We've got Dr. Signe Kastberg, professor of mathematics education, and she's the myriad Endres chair in elementary education. And we have Professors Bill Watson and Wanju Huang, who are from learning design and technology. So with that, I'm going to be quiet so we can see this really cool stuff. So thanks to everyone. And thanks to the whole line.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks everybody for coming and joining us today. Signe and I are going to present to you all today about this developing a theory of relationally competent mathematics equity, RCME, using PODSim, a custom simulation application. Okay, that's a mouthful, I know. So, but this is what we're going to do. I'd like us to start out with a little bit of math, just a little teeny math. And then we're going to talk about our research. We'll then show you a PODSim demo and some other stuff. And then we're going to talk about RCME a little bit more in depth. And then talk about our imaginings around artificial intelligence. And then we'll take questions. But anytime if you have questions, just go ahead and interrupt and ask. It'll be fine. Okay, so let's jump right into the math. Okay, so who likes long division more than ice cream? Nobody? Nobody?
It's a hard sell.
Who even remembers how to do long division, right? Okay, good. So that's good. So, but what we're going to explore this morning is we're going to do what I call hangman division. And if you're of the boomer generation, click on that first link about how to there. This is the problem we're going to do. And so I would ask you this about, as we do this little bit of math. Come on. Okay. So while we're going to do this little bit of math, I'd ask you don't bother with your calculators because it's fine. We're just going to do this division problem, and we're going to use this hangman division algorithm, which is different than the traditional one. The cool thing about hangman division is you only have to really think about the things that you already know. So we're going to divide by 7. So if you don't remember all the 7s times tables, it's okay. If you know 7 times 3 is 21, which is my almost favorite fact of 7s. So that'll be helpful. 7 times 3 is 21. And then my birthday is October 7th. So 7 times 10 is 70. right? So if you know those things, then you are good to go, okay? So if you just scroll down to the next little image there, this is how hangman division works. You pick any factor, of 7. The only thing is when you multiply and get the product, it's gotta be less than the number above it. And then you subtract it, okay? And then you can pick any facts that you want, and you just keep doing that process, okay? You multiply, you put it here, you subtract, okay? And so I'd like you, we forgot the paper and pencil.
Right.
Oh, gosh. Thank you. See, that's why I work with Signe, because she doesn't forget things like this. So we're gonna pass out some little index cards so you can do this little hangman division and do it your own way. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be fine. Any questions about how we're gonna go about doing this hangman division? So what we'll do is you just draw this line down as long as it needs to be until you get to a number here that's less than 7. Okay? So you just keep going and multiplying and subtracting until you get to something less than 7. And so just try it and, we'll give you a couple minutes to work on that. Yeah.
The help Kevin with it's like, but that's not the way we do it. So. Also switch one into this part, that's what's 30. It's wrong. But this. Maybe I'm too mixed.
Yeah, whichever number you would like. Okay,
You do whatever facts you remember or however you want to do it.
Does it have to be a 2-digit number?
It can be any kind of number you want.
Yeah, you just.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, that's a good number. Yeah.
look at how your mind has been molded to do it one way.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's the correct way to do that. I try to do my way. So,
Yeah, so what about your way you question?
I just wanted to just, as you said,
Oh, I love the way it's in, yeah, it's in 30 times 7
Yeah.
is 210.
subtract it.
27. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, I
I
see.
like the way you did that. Yeah. Oh, see. Yeah. You can't just.
What?
I didn't get it.
You didn't get it done yet?
I read my wall.
Uh-oh.
Photos.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
See if you can check with Melva on there. So I'm thinking, are you, I think he has a question. He doesn't know what to do next. You help him?
Yes, I do.
We get ice cream when we're done, right?
Or chocolate.
If only.
So, yeah, we gotta ask this question.
Got her. Pretty sure.
Okay. Okay, so I was walking around and I heard somebody say, we're gonna get ice cream after this.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think the pressure's on for the college, because they're providing lunch after, so I don't know if they've got ice cream for us.
Maybe a cookie.
Also, maybe I should have said long division more than cookies. So what I want you to do real quick, I want you to do what I used to call when I was a geometry teacher, I used the peek around strategy. So why don't you connect with a partner, neighbor nearby and compare what you guys have? And see if you think what you have is good or not good, or, you know, whatever. So go ahead and peek around.
Oh.
So I learned this.
So you had enough.
Yeah, that's.
I didn't know either.
So yeah, it's still worse. Let's just make sure.
I don't know if I can extract some.
Really, I was serious about that. You gotta give attention. There seems to be some questions around stuff. So scroll down and let's look at, keep going.
Oh, yeah.
And keep going. Okay, so if we can get that to fit, I don't know if you can shrink it down, I don't know, because. Okay, bring it down, so I did this one, so you'd have another example, okay? Yeah, so I said I liked the favorite one, so I kept using my favorite facts, that's all I used. Okay, because I couldn't remember some of those other factors of seven, the products of seven, right? So I was nervous, I was like, well, I know 30 and I know 100, I'm good. So I just kept doing that. And so I did 30, I did 100, I did 30, I did 10 and 3. And so where's the answer? Because some people are saying, you know, did I do this right? And I never told you how to get the answer. Did anybody figure out where the answer is to this?
On the right.
Oh, yeah, you add up all these factors that you use. And so scroll on down, and I think ooh, look, the answer. Okay, so there's the answer at the bottom. And you know, if we do long division, you'd get the remainder. If we had a remainder, it would be right there.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so there's the answer. So if you didn't add up all your factors, go ahead and add them up. And what's the answer to this, by the way? I know a lot of people did the traditional algorithm, and I respect that. I do. So what was the answer?
173.
Yeah, 173. So if you add up all your factors, whether you use 10s and 30s or whatever you use, did you get 173 when you added them all up?
Yes.
So when you looked at your neighbors, was yours the exact same as your neighbors?
Yeah.
Anybody?
One of us wouldn't know.
But you know what? If yours was the same, maybe you used the peek around strategy a little bit. Or maybe you just said like mine's, whatever, it doesn't matter, because those are all good strategies when you're doing math, right? So that's what we've got. Now, click on the examples I have there. Or you can click on the examples when I have. Yeah, so here's a couple of other examples. Now, this example, I did notice a couple people did the traditional algorithm. That's how it looks if you do the traditional algorithm in Hangman. The difference between this and the traditional algorithm is we don't write out all the numbers. We would put the 7 in the 10s place and we write 49, right? And you don't get to see those actual facts that are happening. And so I just put those examples in, so for people who wanted to see them. So I did stretch out and I used the 40 on this one, so that you all would know, I did know at least one more fact of 7 tables, right? Okay. So this was a very, what we just did was an example of relationally competent mathematics equity. And by that, I mean that I tried to develop in a very fast and non-realistic way, a relationship with you guys. Did you guys feel confident in what you were doing and feel comfortable with me and when I came around and talked to you? Were you feeling good about things? And did you feel like you weren't marginalized, like you weren't left out and couldn't participate in any way? Did anybody feel that way? So I was able to essentially simulate relational competent mathematics equity. Okay, so let's go on. Oh, let's go to the next slide. So we've been working on custom simulations since like 2018. And we've got a team of folks that have come in along the way at different points, and we'll get into that. But we've been working with Wanju Huang. And we've been working with George Takahashi and his crew at the Envision Center. And we've been working with several of our doc students and visiting faculty and the like to do some PODSim testing that we've started doing. And so there's lots of people involved. So it's not just Signe and I, but Signe and I, we've been working together the longest.
We couldn't do anything except for Wanju knew that I was interested in something and she made it happen.
Go to
And then she made it happen because George made it happen. She got George involved and George got some students involved and they made it happen. This would not be happening without Wanju and the Envision Center.
Yeah,
So thank you.
yeah. Go on to the. So Signe and I, we got started like right late 2018 or so. I started initially because our college dean said, oh, we've got this new tool, Immersion, and we want everybody to see if you can, what you can do with it. And it was a custom simulation, mixed reality application. So we me and some doc students, we created this Harry the Dog custom simulation. And it kind of grew from there. I started working with Signe, doing some self-study research around our math methods practices. And so it kind of took off from there. And then we lost access to Merck because it cost too much when COVID hit and some various other things. And that's when Signe and I, we were looking at our data and thinking, oh, wow, we've really got something here. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah. So Melva and I began working together because I was her critical friend and she was using Immersion. And so the Immersion environment was interesting to me because we had that Immersion environment tested here at Purdue, but it was so expensive, it was unsustainable for us, even though I really wanted it. When Melva said she was using Immersion, I wanted in on that immediately. And I could look at her videos and start to analyze her videos from the interactions that her students were having with the avatars. But none of that would be possible except for the custom simulation that she designed. So the environment, the application was the context for which her intellectual work on the custom simulation lived. So in that custom simulation, there's all sorts of structures so that the students meet with challenges along the way. It's not gamified, but there are opportunities for the students to engage in various challenges if it's the case that they bring something up that is one of the challenges. So that part was very interesting to me. That's kind of where Wanju and I started talking about the idea that we should be able to do that here at Purdue. And we should be able to do it in a way that doesn't require outrageous costs.
Yes.
So So we started meeting with the Envision Center just so they could get our understanding and our vision. And sure enough, they were able to make something happen. Now, it's important to understand about immersion, that the structure of that immersion application came with, what I'm gonna say, oh, you don't want to do
What
that.
is motion?
No, let's go to the next slide so
Okay.
we can get to, yes.
So what is
So-
motion?
That's what we're gonna take a look at right now. Would you click on that first link? Yeah. So that's what merging looks like. Now say what you were gonna say. So.
Hold the string. And so, the immersion environment, as you can see, it looks like a classroom with students sitting around the table. Each one of those students has a name and a profile that comes along with it. The profiles, if you do any kind of, diversity, equity, inclusion work, might be troubling to you. Anybody who read those profiles found them somewhat troubling because they are essentializing what it means to be this type of student, this type of student, and this type of student. Now it is coming to the fore, and Bondurant and Reinholz wrote about the marginalization of the students and the ways in which pre-service teachers in the environment actually took up those marginalized profiles. And also the sim operator on the other side took up those profiles.
And the result was a lot of implicit bias that was going on with respect to the students, what they looked like, and their bios from both sides.
Yeah.
From those who were acting as their teachers and the sim operator, who was in many cases an actor.
So that's the other piece of immersion. So immersion doesn't operate independent of human interaction. There's a live human who operates all the avatars. So the live human can respond to what it is that it's being asked. So each character, each individual character can respond. The live human does those responses. So the computer is not responding, even though when we do PODSim, sometimes they tell us the computer is very good at acting like a child. It's not the computer. We have a person behind. The different immersion, the person, as Melva pointed out, was a live actor. The person didn't have educational background. The person didn't have any particular knowledge on pedagogical content knowledge and how pre-service teacher development works. None of that. It was literally about just having an interaction.
Right.
So if you take rehearsals in your individual classrooms as one example, this was just a step above rehearsals.
Yeah, and so Signe mentioned earlier that we were making challenges. So the custom simulation articulates what those challenges might be. For example, one challenge in our heritage dog task is if the student, if the teacher, the pre-service teacher starts telling the kids answers, telling them answers or trying to explain something.
Is
then-
Ben right?
Yes, is this right? Then they would go up and say, oh, yes, that is right. And then they say, well, how do you do it? What do you do next? And so the actor was told, then you probe the teacher and see how much you can get them to tell and explain for you. And so that was a direct challenge. And as a teacher, that's not what we want to do.
No.
You keep sitting down with, I'm just.
Yeah, so our interest in this whole enterprise is using the application and custom simulations to support the development of not only mathematical content knowledge, but mathematical content knowledge as it's portrayed in students' mathematical thinking, which is quite different than what you see on your individual papers. Typically, when students are trying to express mathematical ideas, they're not doing it in ways that are highly recognizable to novice teachers. And so in these environments, we can introduce these alternative ways of representing mathematics to pre-service teachers and ask them to try to integrate those into a conversation. So our interest is literally around mathematical content knowledge and pedagogical content knowledge and bringing those together.
And we brought in some additional functionality, go to the PODSim demo, the video. So we're going to show you, so I made this PODSim video of an earlier prototype of PODSim. And so one thing, we've added functionality that immersion didn't have, like we can have 4 students or we can have 1 student. And notice that they're not diverse racially. We use rainbow colors. We like them. And we were interested to see if, you know, how that might affect things. So because we don't have the full functionality yet, because it's prototype, you notice that you may see icons above their heads, but we can share student work. You couldn't do that in immersion. And you can also take the student's work and put it on the green board back there. And then you can compare 2 students' papers within the simulation, which for us math educators, we were just really excited about that. And so then you can bring it up close. Now, these are fuzzy because like I said, this is an old prototype. We've since cleared that up and it's a lot nicer now. So, so there's a lot of things we did to improve upon the experiences we had with the merging technology. Okay. So, so like I said, here's our Harry the dog problem. Take a second and read that, and then we're going to show you a student in the one-on-one actual PODSim application so you can see what it looks like. Before we go on, any questions about the Harry task?
It's a very unusual task for pre-service teachers because it's ambiguous. And they don't like these ambiguous tasks very well at all. They never choose them. They would never choose to give them to children. We choose them because we can introduce student work that starts to raise questions about how to handle answers that are unexpected in the moment. So you're going to get to see, this is a student who volunteered to have her video shown. We just finished this testing a couple of weeks ago. You can see this is the one avatar situation. And we are looking at solutions to the Harry the dog problem that you just read about. And so we have an operator who is a PhD in math education that's operating the avatar, not a live actor. So this person has intimate knowledge of children's development and how to respond to various pre-service teachers' probes and prompts in ways that start to elevate opportunities for the pre-service teachers to start to reason about student thinking.
Yeah, the other thing, the other adaptation we made to this custom sim is we pressed the teachers to use a number line representation. Okay.
Ready?
Two dogs. 2 dogs. So how did we get to 2 dogs?
I used this number on me. Can you see it?
I can see it. Do you want to tell me what the little boxes represent on your display?
Okay, so the first box represents when dog 1 got its bath. And then this box represents when dog 2 got its bath. And this box represents after dog 1 got its bath, then dog 1 went into the dog tunnel. And while dog 1 was running away into the dog tunnel, and Harry, who's right here, dog 5, he was really sleepy and he jumped ahead of 2 dogs. These 2 dogs. So this is showing how he went from the 5th dog in line to the place of this 3rd dog.
Okay, so when the second dog is getting washed, where would Harry do that?
Right here,
Okay,
because Gary jumped over these two dogs, and so now Gary's in front of a dog whose name is Green.
okay. So didn't you say that Harry jumped over two dogs when the first dog was being bathed? What about the second dog?
When the second dog was having its bath, Gary was just standing right here waiting for dog two to get finished, because then it would be Gary's turn.
Okay. So for us math educators, this is a very interesting conversation that's happening. Do you want
Yeah.
to say something?
So, probably you noticed some things about the pre-service teacher's questioning and the information that she was trying to get from the students. And you can see in this particular case, she's asking a lot of questions, which is really nice. You might have noticed her tone of voice, how she was interacting with the student, whether she was giving affirmation or not in this particular episode. And then you might have noticed, the really extensive probing. So she kept probing, eliciting, probing, eliciting, probing. The question is then, what opportunity is the child gaining to learn the mathematics of this problem situation? So it's very true that the child is actually getting information about what they've already said and done. But in what way is the probing and eliciting capitalizing on the students' answers to build their mathematical understanding from this problem situation? So that's one of the things that we notice in these kind of short episodes.
Yeah, so let's go to the PODSim ops page. So remember we talked about how the operator, the sim operator, manages all the interactions with all the avatars. Well, this is what our ops panel looks like. So notice that each of the avatars has their own panels, and you'd have to be clicking on different things depending on who you wanted to respond and what you wanted them to do and so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind that, operating the back end, the operations behind a 4-person simulation is more than, just a simple task. Okay, so. Yeah. Okay, so we're at the point now where we've been working on, we've recognized from the literature that relational competence was a thing. So we came out with some interesting ideas based on our analysis. We've made some interpretations about relational competence aligned with the literature.
In using the findings associated with Melva's students and my students, very different populations of students and different contexts at different times with different intervals. What we're noticing is in facilitating discussions after problem solving, so once they've done the Harry the dog problem, what happens with the pre-service teachers? They're able to launch a discussion, and one thing the literature is not showing is what's going on socially. The pre-service teachers are engaging typically socially first with the avatars. So that's their first move in launching. That's not represented in the literature, but that is an area of relational competence that we know that our students have. The difficulty comes in the orchestration that I mentioned before. So even in the 1-person example that we showed, the difficulty is how do you build from the students' answers to something more mathematically robust? When you have 4 students' answers, the problem gets much more complicated because the answers are different from each other. There are similarities, but there are significant differences. And so the orchestration, they will go to the social because they're good at that. And they'll use social moves like, how did you get that? Tell me how you got that. What did she say? What did he say? All good things. Yay, we want them to do that. But what doesn't necessarily happen is, what is what he said, telling you that's new about your solution? So those kinds of questions that start to build bridges between different solutions, those are things we're not seeing. They rarely use them. In fact, in the study that we did, out of 66 people, only 30 of those students actually had any orchestrating move that wasn't eliciting or probing. So that low figure, we want to get higher.
Yeah.
We want them to have more practice.
The other thing we also recognize is that when you have relational competence and you teach using that, we hypothesize strongly that mathematics equity will emerge from that type of teaching. So that's where we come together with the relational competence and the mathematics equity. And by mathematics equity, we're talking, generally speaking, that all people have opportunities to engage and to learn the mathematics. Okay. And
I think the difficulty in the existing literature around relational competence is it's not operationalized well. Any kind of relational practice, when you read about it, sounds like a kind of a bag of tricks of caring, vulnerability, all sorts of elements, but no real way to learn how to do it. And this idea that teachers are born and not made seems still to pervade our areas. We know that teachers can be made, like I'm a made teacher. I'm not a natural teacher. I've seen natural teachers. I'm not one of those people. So that doesn't mean that I can't be an effective teacher. It means that I needed support to become an effective teacher. So what does that support relationally look like? Because it wasn't my academic knowledge that was a problem. It was my relational competence that was a significant problem early on. So as I go through this process of trying to think about relational competence and how that works, what are the areas? How do we define them? How can we describe them? How can students learn them? Are they learned behaviors? Can we learn to be more relationally competent? And our hypothesis is, yes, you can learn to be more relationally competent, but we need better constructs.
yes.
So when you say relational competence, what does that mean? Like you get help from your peers or you're talking about math? Sorry, I'm not.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that is
Now, what
a
is
good
relational?
question.
Do you want to go back?
So, yeah, would you go back just for a second? Yeah.
So relational competence is made up of 3 different areas. Here we focus on the interactional positioning and the social emotional. We think that our students are pretty good at the social emotional moves, although that's been called into question with the new pilot, because they seem to think that if they operate socially in one episode, the next episode, they don't need to do that as much. And so that's a little counter to what we know about human relationships, but they are really good at making moves like, how are you today? What exciting things happened in your day? Those kinds of questions. But then they don't necessarily capitalize on that in the next episode. So they don't go back and try to connect episode to episode. It could be the environment, we don't know yet. But then the other piece of that is interactional positioning. This is kind of a historical record of what has gone on in terms of this interaction and the other interactions. So you're building a history of interactions with this person. And so that every interaction that you're having has another potential building block that is contributing to the overall picture of how this student is conceptually thinking, how they're actually interacting with others, how they're interacting with you, and how they're interacting in the world. So that turns out to be really a big part of mathematics equity, where the teacher actually has history with the students, uses that history, leverages that history to encourage the student to do hard things, persist when they feel like they should give up. Those elements of interactional, what are they calling? Interactional positioning, those eliminate the marginality.
Right, so this middle box here is really our earliest theorizing around what RCME is. So we're starting now to try to develop a grounded theory of RCME that's built on the relational competence constructs mingled with the mathematics equity constructs. And so that's where this is where we are right now. We're still analyzing data and gathering new data to try and see what those constructs might be. And even in our earliest tests of PODSim, we're thinking, wow, okay, this is kind of different from the immersion situation. So it's emerging. So what? What's the point of all this? Right? So the point is, classroom access is not enough to develop RCME. Right now, most teacher ed programs, they have field experiences, student teaching, and on, right? But just because you can tell students about these operational things once we identify them, right? And say, oh, you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. We all know, those of us who are teachers, we all know when you send them out to the field, they kind of do it, but maybe not. And you just don't, so this PODSim is something we think we can add into that mixture of field experiences and teaching experiences and scripting and on to help them to develop this RCME. Did you want to say?
Yeah. So the idea, as I said before, is that pre-service and in-service teachers are really good at social relationships. But utilizing those social relationships to get to academic goals is something that we've known for years is a little bit harder to do. Everyone knows you need to do it, but how to do it, that seems to be a larger question. And the idea that we have field experiences is not enough because we don't have the person power to supervise the field experiences adequately and interact with the pre-service teachers when they're out in the field. We offload that in that job to mentor teachers who would, I'm sure, like to have a lot more training in interacting with our pre-service teachers, but there's just not money or time for either of those things. So what we're thinking is, while we've done rehearsals in the past at the university to try to simulate the environment in the schools, all those simulations are adult to adult simulations. And they don't have the experience of feeling like you're in the moment of teaching. They really, students will drop back into, well, then I would do this and then I would do that, rather than actually interacting as though it were an interaction with another child. So in this particular situation, classroom access is not enough. It's really. So we spend an enormous amount of time and effort on it. And we know that when they go out, they do learn things, absolutely. But we just don't feel like we're getting the bang for the buck that we need. And our studies bear us out that in the years after student teaching, the scale up to be able to be proficient in the field relationally and academically is so hard that many of them drop out. So we need to get them to be well-prepared beginners, just not adequate beginners, so that they can feel like they can succeed and persist when things get really tough. What we're looking at is the idea that they can elicit and probe, so they can get the material out on the table. So all we have to do is figure out how, after they've gotten it out on the table, that they can do something academically meaningful with it. So we're trying to figure that part out. And we think that part with the relational competence that they already have demonstrated some proficiency for will bring them to RCME.
Yeah, the other thing that we've done with our research is, I've been working in our math specialist program. So I teach to develop math teacher leaders. And so I was thinking that if we could get something like a PODSim into that program as well, we would then have teacher leaders or math coaches. We could get them into the schools who could help us to support teachers to develop and pre-service teachers to develop that RCME as well. So our next phase coming up as soon as we get funding, we're waiting to hear about an NSF grant even right now. And so the idea here is we're imagining how AI, we might be able to leverage artificial intelligence to help us with PODSim. So one thing we want to do with AI is to do some natural language processing to help us to see what kind of patterns AI might see in our interactions within our simulations. And then perhaps we'll learn something that we hadn't even realized was going on. So aside from that, we also think that we can get some generative AI to help us to generate some avatar speech. So if we had in the 4-person simulation space, if the teacher says, turn and talk to your neighbor, well, if you're one person, the best you can do is get, or you round robin, talk to yourself, which I don't know how that would work. So, but if we could have a AI bot or something talking, have 2 students coming together to talk and saying things like, boy, I really just didn't get that, or what, well, I didn't either, did you see Jimmy's outfit today? And just talking sort of nonsensically, I think AI can do that really good. And so that would be one set of conversations. And then the other conversations, maybe the AI bot would ask some probing questions that our operator, our PhD student or whoever, our expert, could interact in a meaningful way that might help the teacher to hear some feedback. And all that conversation could be going on at the same time, like in classrooms, you can focus in on this conversation or that conversation. So that's sort of what we're talking about. So what questions do you have?
I have a question. You said you don't know how they get from probe and elicit to.
Yeah.
So you have not gotten it down to like a level of a procedure of best practice or anything?
No, in our field, as a matter of fact, the development of pre-service teachers in terms of interactive academic knowledge and pedagogical content knowledge, what does that development look like and what kind of levers can we use to actually support that development? There are no hypothetical learning trajectories associated with that in our field. And so we have hypothetical learning trajectories for learning a lot of things, but being relationally competent with math equity is not one of them. And even being relationally competent is not one. I mean, the Europeans have cracked it a bit, but they're not able to get any kind of coherence and consistency. What they're getting is when they show students videos of interactions, they're getting them to be able to identify different kinds of relational moves, but then they haven't gone to the point of trying to figure out how to support the pre-service teacher to enact those moves. So the work with talk moves that we already have shows us that we can teach them about talk moves and we can get them to practice talk moves. But even if they do use them, they have to use them in concert with the interpretation of the mathematical thinking of the student. And that is a very complex set of interactions. And we're just not seeing that. There are a couple reasons for that. Number one is when we teach mathematics to pre-service teachers, we think they need to know math. Yes, they do, but they need to know math in a very different way than we know math. And that is they need to recognize it in packaging that doesn't look standard. And so then they need to be able to understand how that thinking is connected to another thinking. And they need to be able to use that thinking in a relationally competent way. So they can't privilege one like, oh, Bill always knows. So let me call on him because he always knows how to do this. And I'll use his answer to leverage to get the other ones to learn. Well, the other ones know Bill always knows. And then they won't say a thing. So that interactive piece where you're always getting called on and the other ones aren't getting called on, they just stop answering.
Yeah.
So
And there's that math equity.
even if she could use your answer to leverage to get the other ones to know something for that moment, later on, the history will out. Because they'll just stop interacting and they'll stop listening. So, that aspect of how do we actually look at a learning trajectory for these complex behaviors that we want pre-service teachers to be able to enact? We just don't have it in that bed. I mean, what,
We assess if you don't know. I mean, traditionally, when you've been teaching this, how have you assessed if there's?
so when we watch them.
Yeah.
And we give them feedback. So when we watch them and we give them feedback, we have been really focused on probing and eliciting. So this is where the field has been. And so we're good at that. We're awesome at it. We cracked that. Unfortunately, we don't have evidence that we're good at that particularly. There's a few studies. And our studies are capitalizing on, oh, we can get good at that way sooner. When the studies that I'm talking about showed that they get good at that is in student teaching. Oh my gosh, now the learning at the university is almost ended. So you got them good at probing and eliciting. We show that you can get them good at probing and eliciting way sooner. And then if you can, now we can work on orchestrating. So we believe you can work on orchestrating when they're in math content courses. Because now you're not dealing with live humans. You're dealing with mathematical ideas that are represented by a live human who's interacting with a pre-service teacher. So we think that what we have been able to achieve on probing and eliciting, we can achieve on orchestrating way sooner, making our pre-service teachers better prepared beginners. Because when we go out to the field, we're always celebrating eliciting and probing. And we're trying to move toward orchestrating. But they're just like, what are you even talking about? I guess.
Hillary's got a question.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi, I was just wondering whether what you are saying is related to teacher positioning, because I'm trying to think about different spaces in the classroom and how the teachers position themselves, and what you are explaining kind of relates to that, so that if we are preparing pre-service teachers, they should then know how to position themselves in class in relation to the content and in relation to where the students are and how the students are likely to interact with the knowledge and with one another and with the teacher.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think teacher positioning is key. And that's why that history of interactions is so important, because it's a network when you're dealing with 25 students and one teacher. So you have a network of interactions that you have to manage and leverage as you're going through the space. And with our pre-service teachers, they're teaching one individual lesson. Once they get in student teaching, they're teaching more. So basically, we have brokered our relationship with the schools to get an opportunity for them to teach one, maybe two math lessons. So think of how they would grow that network of interactional history in that short time period. They're not going to be able to. So they're seeing surface features of interactional behaviors, but they're not able to capitalize over the long term with those and network that with what you're talking about, which is the understanding of mathematics that each student has, and how do you weave a network of those understandings with your relationships that you have with the students. We just simply don't have enough experience, time with networks to be able to get good at it.
Time for one more question?
How many hours do you think it would take to be, immersed in this environment for a teacher to actually come to the level where you want them to have a math equity in their relational competence?
I'll tell you this because we did an experiment with immersion to see how much growth we could get with my in-class teaching and rehearsals in comparison to 2 5-minute immersion episodes. Okay, so they had 2 5-minute. So in 10 minutes, how far did they get? Versus how many class periods did it take me to get to the same place? And I will tell you this, in those 10 minutes, it took me 3 class periods to make that much growth. So when we're talking about in 10 minutes with an avatar, I mean, that's a lot cheaper than 3 class periods with me, I can tell you that. So, and people can do it on their own, like they can sign up for a time, it doesn't have to be as part of a class period, it could be homework, it could be performative homework.
Yeah.
So we absolutely believe that these performances that they're trying to perfect, if you look at that, my class periods were 75 minutes. So if you do the math on it, you know, you're doing 10 versus 200 something, right?
Yeah.
I can do the math on that. That's very efficient.
And you know, it's interesting with our latest simulation results that we got back. Signe and I were just talking just last night about how, you know, I wonder if we could, how many simulation events we could actually put into a course and see if they could build some relational competence even with the avatar. Real relationships. So that was something we just started thinking about. And so that's just like on the horizon.
Thank you so much for thinking with us about these ideas.
Yeah.
And if you have additional questions, you know, we're open, just email us.
Yes, our website, our email addresses are on the slides and references, links to our references are on the slides. And I think they're gonna share them with everybody. So.
It's really, really cool. We're hearing more. All right, we're gonna shift over to Dr. Wanju Huang, Dr. Bill Watson.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thank you so much for your lovely presentation. I noticed you said well prepared. Today is all about, we are going to prepare our pre-service teacher for their teaching. I'm Wanju and my colleague here. Dr. Watson. So we are going to present one project we had, virtual reality classroom management app. This is a project that we started before COVID, but it was so perfect during COVID. Like, how are they going to do evening teaching? Right? So if we can go to the next slide, just like, I don't have a mathematics test for you, so don't worry. Okay? Anxiety, being Asian, I'm supposed to be good at mathematics. So I think we have a lot of teachers here and also people online. Think about this. I would like to think about this. Describe how you felt when you first taught your first class. In one word, not 2 words, 1 word. Okay? Think about it. I remember how I felt still. Those little kids. Oh my gosh. All right. Are you ready to share? And I have boundaries.
When I stand in front of them, the world is shaking. You will
Melva.
That's my one.
Yes.
All for it.
Anyone else?
Butterflies.
What?
I felt butterflies.
Okay. You never, what?
Never taught the kids.
No, any class,
Any class.
Yeah.
Terrified.
Never, terrified. Anybody online want to contribute?
Anxious.
Anxious.
Yeah, pause one back here.
I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, I love you. This is the next slide showing you how I feel. Right, the first time I taught in Taiwan, second graders. I was like, second graders. I was how old? You know, I don't want to say how old I was, but anyway, I was just so nervous and like, some of you not like excited, yes, but you know, more just very nervous. That's hence we have these virtual reality classroom management app that we want to prepare our students, and they were going to tell you why do you start doing this.
So this actually has direct lineage to what Signe was doing, and that she had me in and said, oh, we're demoing this immersion thing, you want to try it out? So I got volunteered to be the teacher and get into the virtual reality, interact with these people. And as Signe mentioned, essentially you've got an actor on the other side, so they speak and it's translating it into a child's voice and you're interacting with the child in that way. So in the VR, I found one of the primary experiences in there is you get a little bit of that butterfly experience where you have kids talking to you. You're able to put yourself in that space when you hear the child's voice and that sort of thing. My brother is a middle school English teacher, and my undergrad was in English literature, so he would have me come in and teach his poetry units a little occasionally. And I would just be like, how do you do this every day and show up with that amount of energy bouncing around the room and try to interact with these people? So we know it's difficult. People have shared, we know it's challenging. So we have stats that show how difficult it is, particularly for novice teachers when they get in there, particularly when it's associated around classroom management. You know, how do you deal with kids who are misbehaving or pushing back on you? How do you keep your cool and not get emotional? My brother's a very good teacher, and that's one of the best that he does is he just keeps his cool and he does not get upset by the kids no matter how they may be trying to push the buttons. I am not that way, which is one reason I am not a K-12 teacher. That was at some point, that was on my horizon and part of my, not even student teaching, but just observation. I was like, why am I doing this? You know, I'm not going to be good at this. Other people can be. So we know how important classroom management is, and we know that the norms that get established early in the classroom can really carry over and have an impact. I mean, I even remember my own experience as a K-12 student, when you would have those student teachers come in and there's blood in the water, right? The kids are looking for how is this going to go, right? And they can very quickly pounce when they don't go well. So we got a Purdue Instructional Innovation Grant to start developing this because part of the experience with immersion, as Signe mentioned, was the cost was just extreme. And it was like, this is not feasible for us to do it. So we need to look for alternatives to do the sort of work that we want to do. And while we can try to do role play and that sort of thing in the classroom, it's not going to be the same as being in this environment and being able to control these sorts of things. And then with COVID happening, as Wanju mentioned, it was even more. Now we can't be in a classroom and doing this sort of thing. So our team that was involved was Dr. David Sears in educational psychology, and he taught the course on classroom management that we were originally targeting this for. Dr. Ben Mason with special education, the two of us from learning design and technology, and bringing in George's team for the Envision.
Okay, so the design, we have this interface. We start, David and I, and David and Ben, they both have left Purdue. So not only two, last name, thank you. The show must go on. Our design is we start having the conversation with the George's team, the programmers and I, and we bi-weekly meeting. We tell them what we would like to do. Is in the interface is there will be different scenario. This is a classroom, right? In the middle, this is a classroom, but we have control panels. Like someone is going to control those scenarios. If you can go to the next slide.
And if I can interrupt real fast, I was supposed to say it and I forgot to say it. Our goal with this initial simulation that we created was to focus on the procedure of classroom management rather than the emotion. So I mentioned doing immersion, I could feel some affective, butterflies and that sort of thing that's not what our original PI was focused on. He said, before we get them to that point, I want them really highly familiar with the procedures of how they should be managing the classroom without that emotional component coming in. So that's why our original focus here is obviously not as immersive as you might typically see in a VR environment where you have the kids' faces and expressions you're seeing. We intentionally were stripping that away to focus initially on the procedural process that we wanted the students to be following.
And that was an intentional decision, like in the very beginning. You cannot tell the race, gender, colors, it's just everybody looks the same. And that's really an intentional decision because it's not about, we understand race, gender issues are very important, but we wanted to be able to deal with the scenario first. That's the most important thing for us. Next slide.
So with the scenarios here, obviously, again, we're trying to get them through not having to spend the valuable time student teaching or having a horrible experience student teaching. I talk too much, but I have to tell a story. I remember when I was in, I think, freshman year of high school, we had a student teacher, Miss Jenkins, very nice English class. First day of class, she comes and starts teaching, and she's talking to us in front of the desk and forgets the desk is behind her and turns around and walks into the corner of her gut and lets out a whoo really loud. And it was like game over, right? That's her, can't recover from that. So sorry. Not that relevant, but I still remember to this day. We're trying to get them to be so comfortable with the process of how they're going to be managing things that fight or flight instinct is not there. They feel like I've got this, it's under control. If something happens, I know how I'm going to be responding to it. So we are doing this the same way that we have a facilitator who's running the simulation on the other side, and they are able to trigger student activities and have different responses based on how the student teacher is responding to those distractions, right? So if we were doing a higher level, a kid could get their phone out and be looking at their phone. How are you going to respond to that with a process that's not going to elevate discipline issues, but actually lower the discipline issues in it? So we have different tasks that the students can be assigned. So some can be on task, others can be off task, others can be disrupting the class as a whole, or just be distracted. And we have a facilitator on the other side of that who is able to trigger these different scenarios and actions that are taking place in the simulation.
So, we are running the pilot right now, and so we have, several, I think like 20-some students that have experienced this VR classroom management app, and they got the feedback, some of the feedback from, the survey. So it was honestly very positive. They all love it, very unique and engaging, empower, I feel empowered. I think the last one is very important, less stressful practice. The key thing is like, Melva and Signe's project, right? We wanted to have a safe place to practice, to fail. And for this one, more importantly, is we have the proctors, right? We want to have that debriefing sections. The most important is like debriefing, because the app can track their location, can track their time. If something happened, they can choose whether they want to deal with it or not, because we can see it. Did they get closer or did they just walk away? And that is the debriefing part. The coach, the TA can have them, can have a debriefing with them. So now we are going to have a live demo.
No. If you want to come over
Oh,
here,
okay.
I can have you join in.
Sure. They should have a participant.
This you this.
You can, you are not gonna get
We'll give you.
Anybody want to try it? Okay, come.
I need to know the money, how much.
For faculty, I don't know. So you can see what she is going to see.
That's it.
Left hand. And everybody can see on the screen what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There we go.
All right, okay. She's on my hat. Is she?
Yes.
Whoa,
Shoulders.
All right.
is there any way I can tighten this or something?
Yes, there's two bends that we can take back here. Sorry, I have a big head. It's the ego after all
Whoa.
Alright,
praising us
okay.
for.
I might break stuff.
All right.
Yeah,
You-
okay.
Now, this is.
If I walk, I'm gonna drop.
Right next to You want to fire up some actions?
Yes, so inside of this view, you can kind of see the top-down view as well as the perspective from within the VR headset. So within inside of this kind of command center, I can essentially select any particular individual and change their sort of level of distraction. I'm going to put this green person on the cluster 4 desk to sleep. So they're going to be sleeping. Maybe this one up here is going to be on their phone. Right? And if I switch back over to this perspective, you should be able to see, if you look around, there's that character that's sleeping over there. So if you
You're going to tag on, yeah, and then turn around, oh, that phone, the orange.
yeah, the orange character right there is kind of there on the phone.
This one? Yep.
Both of them.
And within inside of this protocol, as we keep track of what's happening, I can essentially manage the state that they're in. So if you are, let's say, challenging the student or letting them know that you're watching them, you can essentially change their state within inside of this platform and keep track of when that's happening. We're also recording the positional and orientation data of the headset. So I know pretty much throughout the entire duration of this experience where they're looking, what activity or what kind of action they're performing, as well as I can actually add notes onto this as well. So behind the scenes, the person behind the curtain can essentially have full control within sort of this simulation environment and custom generate a scenario to allow a pre-service teacher to experience.
You see her view again?
Yes, sorry.
This guy has issues.
Yeah, I fell asleep.
He's tired.
So if you've already, let's say you've confronted that student and gone through a de-escalation process, I can kind of put them back on task. And then you'll see that that student is now awake. Peter?
Well, thank you very much. How do you feel?
I feel like I'm in a game, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
The thing is that I'm boss. Yeah, you know, when you press the laser.
Right, thank you so much. So we have another thing we're looking for, like the AI thing with the other party. We have something new as well.
Oh, there's a little bit of time. Did you want questions as well? Or?
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Oh, and I would say one thing we're looking to hopefully eventually be able to do is be able to ramp this up to have new avatars that are more realistic. And that would also allow us to be able to monitor how they're disciplining different avatars and looking for implicit bias and helping them understand whether it's gender, whether it's race, how they might be interacting with different students doing the same sorts of behaviors. So again, more money comes around.
Yeah, I was actually wondering about your rainbow colored avatars too, and what you've been thinking along those lines, because we too will eventually come up with a suite of avatars and something that are more lifelike and gender.
Yeah, so that is the new project we are working on right now, using these, but turn that into a TA VR training. And so those avatars, I already pick different races and genders avatars, and they are more real. And it's higher education, PA training, and also we have different classrooms, 3 different type of classrooms. One is big auditorium here, like we have a big classroom here, this side classroom, and also the last one is lab. Like students work together in a team environment. So, you know, we are working on it. It's in progress. Yep.
And like actually with VR, one of the main ways people have used this is to help people get used to fear. Even leveraging, they've used Half-Life and the monster spiders in there to help people with arachnophobia. The idea that you can expose and get people practice, and that's been shown to be highly, highly effective. So our hope is that by getting them very comfortable with the procedures and having them reiterate these sorts of experiences, that emotional aspect will be much lower when they actually are going into student teachers and then as teachers as well.
Thank you. Questions?
So entrepreneurship, what are the plans for, what to do with this? Like in terms of like making it available commercially?
Commercially.
Yeah.
I'm having a meeting with Chris next week.
Yes, I know.
To be determined.
Yeah, so we're a ways from that for sure.
Yeah, but that's the ultimate end goal for both projects.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're following their lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the reasons that we wanted to do it was because of the high cost of immersion and other jobs like this. And we think that it's basically costing so much, the higher education can't use it as a tool.
Yeah.
So while what's going on with NSF is that ETS is using it to try to develop testing mechanisms for our teachers. We can't even pay for it. So, NSF is supporting ETS with development dollars to do that kind of thing. But we need low cost or free opportunities and tools. So in terms of what we could potentially do to make some money off of it, it's not clear to me that is our goal. Our goal is to be able to provide it so people can actually do a better job in teacher education.
And I would say, that's an area that I've explored and picked around for years now.
Yeah.
I've gone through Purdue's, commercialization, training and that sort of thing. And my big takeaway from that was it's very hard to make this happen. The vast majority of the commercialization projects are failures. I actually have a close friend who's faculty here who has commercialized successfully his product into a company. But it takes a vast amount of his time. Like he originally hired a CEO to do that. It fell on his face and he had to step in and save the company. So you're spending either time and there's no guarantee it's going to work out. So my big takeaway from the commercialization thing was how difficult it is to successfully commercialize. I would also say I've looked at like, well, I'm not even interested in commercializing. I just want to sustain it so I can give it away for free. And I've interacted with professors who noted that when you try to give stuff away for free, people don't want it. So actually, I had a professor who developed, for autistic students, developed learning modules and couldn't get anyone to use it because he was giving it away for free. So he ended up charging, and the more he charged, the more people who would use it. So he actually had 3 different versions of it. He had a free version and then more, and almost no one uses the free version, even though basically it's functional.
It's a good model.
There's the psychology thing of if it's free, it must not be worth it.
Yeah.
So I'm still kicking around those sorts of ideas.
But I see a lot of, potential, especially, again, the high cost of version, the high cost of operating it. This doesn't seem sustainable. This is very exciting. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you thinking to adapt this to different, class age, like classroom age, for example? I know some classroom management is different than high school management. So in high school, maybe you will see more teaching students leaving than in the elementary school. I was thinking, do you have this adapted to different categories of schools, like age?
I think we can put in different scenario in this environment. That's what we are trying to do for the higher education one. We will position, the environment is going to be different. Like the classroom you see for the VR right now is very much K-6 classroom environment. And then for the higher education, we put in different environment. For what you just mentioned, high school, then we'll put in different environment in that virtual reality environment, but then also change this scenario, different type of behavior.
And the avatars.
Yeah, the avatar, yeah.
I think that aspect is where the custom simulation design work comes in. And when I start, for sure in math ed, no one knows what we're talking about. No one understands about what design elements need to go into custom simulation design. So the environment is one thing, but the design of the custom simulation and how the operator is gonna behave, or how the avatars are gonna behave, what options are necessary. Those are all design decisions that need to be baked into the custom simulation. And that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, and that even includes the racialization of the avatars and the genderization of them, because you may want to have a classroom of all white students and see how things emerge, and then have a classroom of all Black students and see how things emerge, and then have a mixed race class and see what happens. Because that would, I think, inform people about, perhaps, inform them about their implicit biases that they maybe they weren't aware of, right?
And I think, as you mentioned, one of the real places that we could leverage this in a powerful way is if we can get it to where there's AI and things that allows you to do this without a facilitator.
Yeah.
I was in a project called the Experience Accelerator that was trying to teach systems thinking to engineers. The idea there was it was case-based scenarios. We're introducing them to projects, and the idea that they could iterate these projects over and over again and learn heuristically what they were doing properly or not by either applying systems thinking or not.
Yeah.
I can see a similar sort of approach with this, where right now there's a lot of power in having a facilitator where you can control the simulation, but there's a lot of power if you can make this not have to take place during classroom time and with someone on the other side of the screen, but you can just iterate the scenarios as much as you want.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So now we'll hear from our last speaker, Dr. Tawfiq Salem. I'll get that AI piece.
Yeah, they are. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I know that the food is behind us now. Thank you as much as I can. Okay, so today I'm presenting on behalf of a team. We have Dr. Chris, Masood, myself, and definitely George has been with us from the very beginning. And I'm so excited to talk about our presentation in AI into virtual reality based simulation that build intercultural teamwork skills. I'm going to start and try to take you into a different mood now into so do we have this one? Yes, awesome. I didn't pay attention to that. I'm used to teaching from my laptop, so I need to click that button. So for manufacturing, as we all know, we are living in the era of AI. So almost everybody now is talking how we're going to integrate AI or ChatGPT or stuff like this into the things that I'm doing, either in medical school, in business, in our teaching, and in the stuff that we do. And definitely, manufacturing is one of the very important things that run our economy. So as you guys can see, it's a big difference from the manufacturing or the factory that we see nowadays compared with the factory that we used to see. And definitely that comes with a lot of challenges. Yeah, so anybody can tell me what some of those challenges can be for transferring to smart manufacturing? Concerns, things that you think like exactly, that's a very major thing, yes? Replacing humans with robots and stuff like this. Anything else?
Well, recognizing how many humans you need to keep the robots going.
Exactly, that's another thing. And that will also open something more important. It was like, we need those employees now to be more skilled than the one that we used to have. Yes, in the previous manufacturing and factories, we didn't need, for example, data analytics. We didn't need to know computer. We didn't need to know many of those things. But nowadays, we are looking for a different workforce. Yes, and that definitely will bring different challenge for us as well. Those smart manufacturing open the stuff now. You can say, hey, in Indiana, I have a factory, but this factory, if it uses smart manufacturing and the stuff, most likely they're doing a lot of outsourcing and working with, like, let's say, working with people in India, they are working with people in California. It's not like isolated. I'm here and they don't connect with anybody. Yes, so that definitely will also make the diversity of the workforce that we have much bigger than it used to be. Yes, and definitely that is some of those challenging. In our work, we're trying to focus on the problem of advanced manufacturing and try to improve the skills for our smart manufacturing technicians that we're trying to prepare for the market, yes? So in Ivy Tech, they have a program for preparing technicians for smart manufacturing, and we try to kind of like help them build those skills of communication with those diverse employees that they may end up working with in the factory or in the place that they're gonna work with. Yes. Oh, awesome. Yes. So now I have the contract. Stuff. So what we can do, how are we gonna train our technicians? There is many ways to train our technicians to bring them, for example, to the field, take them to the factory and they try to experience this stuff. But the problem is this is very difficult nowadays. For example, I have been working with some collaboration with GE, General Electric Aerospace in Lafayette, and I'm trying to take some of my students to the factory there or to their place, and they never have access. They would not allow you to bring students and stuff like this because of the sensitivity of the things. Yes, they are working on airplane engines and stuff like this, very sensitive stuff. They would not allow you to bring the students, for example, unless it was like you're gonna see the outside campus and stuff like this, like from behind. Okay, you know, it's like a secret. It was like classified information. I was like, yeah. So we came up with the team came up with the idea of a try to use virtual reality to try to simulate those environments for our students and prepare them for the culture that they're going to go to into the factories. So this one here, VR-based training platform has been developed with George involved, Masood, and Chris. I can go like this. What they have done in the VR simulation is that they developed different scenarios into the VR that took place into a specific factory, similar environment that we're gonna see together now in a few minutes. They've done 15 subject matter experts from manufacturing, management, leadership, and communication. The adaptive VR simulation contained 3 different scripts. Those scripts had been used or presented by actors and definitely addressing different communication challenging with diverse employees and stuff like this. And at the end of each VR, so the participant will see those scenarios, and it will also kind of do some kind of debriefing after the participant go through those sessions and videos that he's gonna see. And for those debriefing, it's gonna kind of like say to the student what answers you have selected and why you have selected like this and stuff like this, and try to teach them different skills. And I think, gonna see something, some of those scenarios in this coming one. So can, George, if you can run this one.
Hey,
Those are the features.
No, I haven't met him yet. I just know his name is Stan something. I saw his Mercedes in a lot. Hi, Walt. Did you take care of Lee's van 17?
All fixed, up and running.
What was the problem?
The usual operator error.
Oh, what's that supposed to mean?
Oh. His name is Sam, huh?
Thank you all for gathering on such short notice. I promise we won't keep you long. Now, as you know, Pridemore Paper International recently completed its purchase of WeWrap from the Weaver family. Pridemore's very own Vice President of Operations, Samantha Atkinson.
Please, Steve, call me Sam.
My apologies. Sam has driven all the way down from the Chicago headquarters to give us some very exciting news. We replaced the robots. Sam, welcome to Buxton, Indiana, and as plant manager, I officially welcome you to WeWrap.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I should be applauding you after taking the factory tour and seeing what you've been able to accomplish on those outdated machines. You all should be commended.
How about a raise instead?
I'm sorry, did you say something? I thought I heard something. What did you say?
So yeah, in this scenario, what we're gonna do? And this definitely depends on cultures and stuff like this, yes, is an interesting scenario, yes. So the participant will be wearing those VR and they're gonna experience those different secret and different scenarios. And definitely they're gonna select, and based on their selection, they will go into a specific debriefing that will teach them different skills and stuff like this. And as you guys can see, it is in a factory. The environment is very similar to the environment that we are targeting. And those are real employees with different background and stuff like this. Those are definitely actors playing like employees and stuff like this. And we can see the diversity in the workforce that we have. Now, those kind of system, or this system has been developed with from the team, and it has been funded by the NSF, but definitely there's some limitation with those VR. Anybody can tell me what will be critique of this method of delivering these kind of knowledge? Yes.
Well, you have limited pathways in terms of your responses that you can respond.
One limitation. Anybody else?
Once at which it stops to have you respond, like maybe you wanted to say something earlier.
Yes, that's also another thing. Anything else?
I think it's a less authentic context because realistically you would have prior relationships with these people and other things that would inform your responses.
Yes, definitely. So those kind of relations that you may have and the stuff that will affect your response, yes. And at the same time, those responses will be also recorded, yes, for the participant. And some of those participants might be even afraid to share those kind of information, yes. It might be something. And the other thing that we also have is the accessibility, yes. So here we need the VR headset. Yes, we need those things to run it. And those things sometimes is not available, yes. So we came up with a new step toward improving this system by using AI-powered. Next one. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting, Josh. Yeah. So those are some of the limitations that we have. So while the platform provides essential advantage, it does have some limitation, the accessibility, and then due to the sensitivity of the topics, some of the people will conceal their real answers for some of those questions. So we came up with trying to use the AI. Sorry. So AI-powered online mentor system. So in this one, we actually try to get rid of the VR and have those kind of scenarios hosted in a new website that you don't need VR anymore. And it's gonna give you the same almost environment that you see in the VR. But the good thing is that you don't need those VR set anymore to use this website. And not only this, we also integrated a ChatGPT version, but this version that we have trained and fine-tuned only for this context. So we have customized the ChatGPT, this is how we can put it, or we call it in machine learning, fine-tuned version of the ChatGPT that will do the debriefing. Gonna be asking questions, the participant will also ask a question, get answers and stuff like this in the context that we are delivering on those in those sessions and secrets. So with the team help, definitely the Vision Center has been involved. We developed our first website. This is it's now we have it ready. We are doing final touches in terms of design and stuff like this. I think if George can try to click on the link. So here's our system that we have developed. So now the participant will come to this web page. Can you choose, are you currently using VR? Because if he's using VR and the VR is there, then we can take it into consideration. But now we are building this in assuming that the VR is not there. So we're gonna go with no. And then this will into this is agreement that, hey, and then we're gonna go into the different sessions that we have into the website. And as you can see,
He knows like 115.
it's like VR.
Not very sure, it said 115. Maybe the tour is running long. So we're not in our place. Definitely want to make a good first impression. Your Craigmore paper, they're an international company operations all over the world. Finally, to be able to upgrade
Is the voice, Josh?
lithography is the future of the industry, and Craigmore should start with your attendance.
Yep.
Okay. You get a huge career opportunity for the both of us. Now, I was on the website earlier. They have job openings for engineers and technologists in places like San Diego, South Africa, Australia. I mean, Boston is great, but who wants to spend their entire career in some rural Indiana town that doesn't even have a Starbucks, right?
So again, similar to the VR, the participant will have those kind of questions after you see the scenario. And those questions will be.
Sorry, I gotta get this. Hola, mamá, ¿todo bien? Ah, no, no puedo hablar a la mitad. Ahora te llamo un poco más tarde y para hasta pronto. Where is everybody? I know punctuality isn't high on the list for Richie and Lee, but I thought Hank would be here by now. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the office and check to make sure we're not meeting somewhere else. I'll text you if I find anything out.
Just for reference, this is using WebXR, so if you happen to have a VR headset, you can click on this.
I'm good. He's our nickname, so his real name. Called me Bruce for 6 months. Easy repeat. Just coffee. Hey, Lee, when Pridemore converts the press to Flexo and replaces you with a robot, you think they'll take the money they say paying your sorry butt and buy a new coffee machine? Maybe we can get one of them fancy cappuccino contraptions. Maybe the robot can make the coffee. Now that's an upgrade I could get behind. You don't really think they're gonna do a major overhaul right now with ASO on their backs? Wouldn't think so. What I do know, Kiyosaki, the changes are coming. Why else would they hire the newbie? Is that true? Has Gabriella said anything? We're switching printing systems before ASO?
Again, with a question for the participant.
ASO stands for August, September, and October. It's the busiest 3 months of the entire year because of the holiday print run. It represents about 60% of our annual output, and it's 90 days ahead. There's no way we're overhauling anything before ASO. Didn't we upgrade packaging in like February? Yeah, 2 years ago. Gabriella finally convinced old man Weaver to pull the trigger. That wasn't so bad. Not for us. I mean, it sure was for Doug and Bard. I thought they retired. Not willingly. But we had a party and everything. That's how it works, Lee. When technology makes you unnecessary, they cushion the blow. Sheet cake and gift cards. I don't like sheet cake. Man, Richie, you got me worried. Should I be worried?
Again, with those kinds of pop-up questions that will come after each scenario. So maybe George, you can click one.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Don't worry, it will not be ignored.
Well, look at Hank, all dressed up in his Sunday best for the corporate day. This one person from operations has to look presentable, Richie. No offense. None taken. Machine's broken. And we've heard through the grapevine that we're switching printing systems. Is that true? Yes, but not until after October, right? Most likely. I'm thinking sometime after the new year. It'd be crazy to try to do anything now, but I can't say for sure. Are they cutting positions? They don't tell me anything. Oh, come on, Hank. They don't tell you anything because you don't ask. You're the boss man. You need to start acting like it. Really, Richie, I'm warning you. It's not the time or place. Hey, hey, you met the new suit from Pridemore? No, I haven't met him yet. I just know his name is Sam something. I saw his Mercedes in a lot.
I think we can stop here, don't you? Yes. So this is kind of like the things that we, or can be accessed from anywhere. Now we have it hosted in a website. And definitely the next step after those kind of scenarios finish, we do have the debriefing, which is a very cool part that we have developed as well. And we maybe go to the next slide and I can do it. Yes. Yes. So the debriefing, once those scenarios finish, you come to this debriefing page where you're going to be interacting with a ChatGPT or a ChatGPT version, customized version for our system. And maybe we can try it on the website as well. So for example, once you finish a scenario, it's gonna ask you just to start and break the ice with the participant. How can I balance personal and career aspiration with the needs and dynamics of a newly acquired team? So maybe we can say open communication, George, or something like this. No, definitely you can't say anything, but the ChatGPT will kind of limit your the context to be in that stuff that we have. And here our Wanju is thinking, so, and it's gonna shoot an answer. Take some time, definitely. So here is reflection on given the input that you gave, and definitely this is very valid answers that we are looking to from the ChatGPT to give, and this is really cool. As you can see, reflecting on how you would navigate these dynamics and give them lots of answers. Now, definitely that the participant as well can follow up with new questions. So can select from a predefined question that we set, or can type any question. Yes, so maybe should we type, George, or say something like out of context, like,
Sure.
What is the party tonight or something? Yeah, yeah. So here is the ChatGPT trying to limit and trying to put the participant into the context needed for us. And this is definitely based on our fine tuning for the ChatGPT. So we did have our own version. We give lots of material and train different things. And even those messages that the participants sent, we actually coded it with some other words as well. So to make sure that the ChatGPT will not go out of context and out of control. And those predefined questions as well, the student can start, because some of the participants don't know how to start. So we're giving them those kind of questions just to break the ice. And here for this system, every participant will have a unique number. That unique number will not store any information about that specific participant. So it's almost unknown. It's actually anonymous. Yes, we don't even store their email or anything. We only have unique ID just to do some processing afterwards to see how every participant or the people who use the system, their experience went and stuff, and the answer that they got and things like that, just to make sure that the system is working. And this is the briefing, definitely similar to the briefing in the VR, but this one, as I said, it's more of customized based on the participant. That one in the VR, it's almost predefined. So the briefing is gonna the participant, if the participant say answer 1 or 2 or 3, then take him to this debriefing. If he says A or B or C, give him that specific other debriefing. In this one, it's more dynamic. It's more of a participant customized on the participant behavior and their response to those kind of questions that we have in the ChatGPT. And I think with this, next one is the technology that we have used to develop this one. So we did use HTML, CSS, JavaScript for our front end, for the back end, and our website is hosted in Google Firebase and Node.js. And AI integration, we used or we trained our own version with ChatGPT. And this is kind of the technology in general that we have used. Definitely, there is a lot of work that have been involved in developing those things. Have been lots of like revising and to do different things and the trying and the stuff like this. Now, for the next step that we're trying to do now, So we're trying to do for our next step, trying to collect some feedback from the participant and the students. And for that, we already have, after all these debriefing and stuff, we can go to the data collection. Click on the data collection, Georgia, please, if you don't mind. So in the data collection, after the participant finish, he's gonna see this kind of image to give us some feedback. How was their experience with the VR? How was their experience with the ChatGPT version, and any general feedback they want to provide us? We're trying to collect those feedback, and it's gonna be given to students in the classes here at Purdue to try it and give us those feedback to improve our system. Maybe you can go back, George. And definitely we're gonna try to analyze those feedbacks and try to improve our system. And we're trying also to do some improving for the design and the stuff like this. With this is kind of my last slide, but before I finish, Yeah, so those two projects has been funded. The VR-based version has been funded by the NSF, and our version of the website based version has been funded by the Robert's office from the Innovation Hub. And with the collaboration with the Innovation Center and Silmar as well. And with this, I think, thank you very much. If there is any question.
Does the program collect any user data that it feeds to ChatGPT to inform targeted responses with the mentor?
So the responses that the participant clicked on, no, we don't use those information. Yeah, so we leave it free. Now, those information will be recorded. We're gonna store those information somewhere for us to kind of analyze the data and see what the participant and how their behavior. But we generate unique ID. We don't take the username or, for example, their email or anything. We generate unique ID for each participant using our system. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I was wondering if you had learning analytics or anything else or plans to put those in, so even if their answers in sequence inform the responses from ChatGPT for the next one.
That's actually a very good idea. So you're saying, like, if we take the responses and feed it to the ChatGPT, it's like, this is what the responses was, and try to deal with them as considering those responses. Yes, is that what you're trying to say? Yeah, I think that's a good thing that we can consider doing. Isn't it, George?
Yes.
Yeah, but we are not doing it. Yes.
No, right now. Not right now. This is more in the data collection phase because right now it could be an open bag. Students can ask anything. So, but we want to collect all that information and in a curated model, be able to retrain that back into the platform.
Yes.
How are they asking the questions and interacting with the chat bot if they're using VR? Do they have to go log in another station or?
So each of the VR sequences are essentially small snapshots and it's all run via the WebXR. So you can access it while in the headset, it's just hard to type.
Right.
So you have to kind of like lift your headset. You can use the virtual keyboard, or if you know where the keyboard is, certain headsets do allow a mixed reality view. So you can just see your keyboard and type and actually see it on a web browser. So it's just not as comfortable. So it just depends on how you prefer to access it.
So it's gonna be like, you put VR, remove VR and type, then put VR again and stuff like this. But we left that option. Honestly, I don't feel like, maybe some participants will like the VR more, but I would assume that people will be like, hey, come on, I'm gonna go with the website, why I need to go with the VR. But yeah, if they decided to go for different reasons, they're gonna be putting it in on and off. Yeah.
I guess, what's the added value of the VR?
If they decided to do it?
Yeah.
I don't know, why people decide to do it? But yeah, my argument, I'm in the team was like, I'm like the one who's the fan of the website. I was like, we need more accessibility, we need this and that, let's do the website. But there's definitely the VR version.
A lot of the intent was designed around like emotional attachment and immersion into the environment. One of the things that you kind of get when you're watching it in a video is it's almost like even though people are looking at you, they're breaking the fourth wall, right? Yeah. You still feel like you're watching a corny show.
Yeah.
However, if you're in VR, when they look at you, it really kind of feels like they're looking at you, which can really give you that sense of like, oh, I'm responsible for my actions. So that sense of presence really elevates the type of responses I'm going to give. So
that'd be interesting to see. When they're wearing the VR headset, because they ask those questions that just puts in that awkward moment. Do you feel more of that awkwardness on the VR environment than you do in the video? That makes
Yep.
I would agree with George. It can elevate the responsibility for the participant. And I think it's a different experience for sure. And it might be a good idea to investigate, like if we have the participants using the website and then using the VR, will that affect their responses and stuff like that? I think something we can investigate.
That'd be fast.
Yeah.
With the AI, you hope you get to the point where, they don't have to select, because one of the limitations, right, is in real life, you don't have 3 options flash before you in text, right?
True.
So do you hope to get it to the point where they can respond orally? And then the interaction that way?
That's a very good one. Yeah, I think that could be something we can integrate for the future versions. It's like speech to text.
Yeah, speech to text.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Now, for the pop-up questions that we have for the briefing, we actually tried without it first, and then we was like, no, we want to break the ice. We want to encourage the participant to participate and ask you questions and stuff like this. So it was like, let's give him a question, try to get him into the mood of like participating to improve the participation.
Yeah, even though there's only like 3 options and it's all
Yeah.
pre-scripted, it gives you that a little bit of additional agency
Yeah.
and tie into the space. So
Mhm.
that was just one of the experiences that we've seen. Regarding the voice to text sort of input as well as a response platform, one of the things that we've seen so far, just from a timing perspective, is from the moment you say something to the moment you get a response, it could be like 20 seconds or more.
So, a natural lag time.
Yes, so unlike talking to a normal human, it becomes kind of cumbersome to sit there and say, here's my response, and just wait for a bit. You even saw in the response, this was live testing right here, where ChatGPT can take anywhere in between like 1 to 10 seconds, depending on how big of a response it's planning, as well as how busy their servers are.
And how accurately it's picking up what you said.
That is true, yes.
That's another
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, Sam.
Now technology, but like instead of like focusing on the conversation, they were just like curious and then looking around.
Oh, I think that's something, you know, you will always have that risk, because like the participant will get more interested in the surrounding and this thing that we are, and instead of paying attention to this context, to the context of the content of those scenarios, yes. Did we have that? I think in the previous system.
Yes, so we talked with some of our other projects with Dr. Masood, where in traditional films, the filmmaker can plan all the camera shots and where they're going to focus on. In the VR environment, if you're using a 360 camera, you can look wherever you want.
Yeah.
So maybe all the action could be happening right here, and you're just focused on the wall here. So you might miss all that cool stuff. So there is some challenges that you can run into. Of course, that kind of tends to be similar in real life, though, where if you're not paying attention, you will miss, some crucial interaction.
The hope is that the actors will do a good job of attracting them to watch them. Yeah, it's like those scenarios are interesting. So that's I think the main idea of using those. Actually, those are real actors, so they know how, and those scenarios will be written by professionals. So.
And you can always, roll back too. You can fast forward or go backwards. Actually, you can disable fast forwarding, but you can go back if you want to replay a sequence. Yeah. Yes, you can.
So any more questions?
Anyone online? Have a question?
Fine.
There wasn't, just, yes.
Yeah. Any questions from the online? That is the question from the online. With this, thank you very much, and thank you for coming, and thank you for all that.
All right, well, thank you everyone for being here. We want to especially thank our 3 guests. We get a little pretty swag bag for you, so thank you, Dr. Grant. Thank you, Dr. Salem. George, thank you so much. It's full of produced flags, so hopefully we get good luck for tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And so we've got a sandwich bar, and so for those of you who are online, maybe you can find a virtual reality. Those in the room, you'll just go through and pick what you want for your sandwich, and encourage you to stay here, continue to talk with our guests and our faculty about ideas, and thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for the tech support. Thanks, Wanju, for the inspiration. Greatness.
That's great.